Admiral Zalara K. Vosh had served in the Galactic Confederation fleet for 342 standard cycles. As the Confederation's most decorated ship inspector and fleet advisor, she had evaluated vessels from every major spacefaring civilization, from the bioorganic ships of the Vespid Collective to the quantum crystalline cruisers of the Arcturus Dominion. Her standards were legendary, her approval nearly impossible to attain, and her criticism feared throughout 17 sectors. The K. Vosh rating system had become the standard by which all military and exploratory vessels were judged. Scoring above an 85 on her 100-point scale was considered exceptional. No ship had ever scored above a 92. "Absolutely unacceptable," she muttered, her 6 violet eyes narrowing as she examined the engine compartment of the Druxian battlecruiser Invincible Dawn. Her exoskeleton clicked in irritation as she made notes on her datapad. Plasma conduits exposed within 2 meters of crew workstations. Radiation shielding at minimum specification. This wouldn't survive a single engagement with a determined adversary. Captain T. Relk of the Druxian Imperial Fleet. Mandibles twitched nervously. "Admiral K. Vosh, I assure you our engineers have certified this vessel as—" "A death trap," Zalara interrupted, not bothering to look at him. "The placement of these emergency systems violates basic safety protocols established 1,000 cycles ago. Rating 61. Below acceptable standards for Confederation alliance." Relk's compound eyes widened in horror. A rating that low would result in his immediate demotion, possibly court-martial. "But Admiral, surely." "I've seen enough." Zalara swept past him, her tall, insectoid form radiating disdain. "File a formal protest if you wish. It hasn't worked for the last 78 species who tried." As she departed the Druxian shipyard, her aide, Lieutenant Pax, approached cautiously. "The High Command has sent a priority message, Admiral." Zalara sighed. "Another diplomatic incident?" "No, Admiral. They're requesting you evaluate a new potential member species. Their representatives arrived at Central Hub yesterday with a ship they claim is worthy of Confederation standards." Zalara's mandibles clicked in amusement. Fresh cyberpods always think their vessels are revolutionary. "Which species?" "Humans, Admiral. From Sol System." She paused. "Sol? The quarantine system. They've barely had FTL capability for 30 cycles." 28, actually, Pax corrected. "But they're insistent on a formal evaluation. They've invoked the newcomer provision." The newcomer provision was rarely used, a legal loophole, allowing emerging species to request formal evaluation before standard waiting periods. It was considered presumptuous at best, insulting at worst. "How very typical of a juvenile species," Zalara muttered. "Very well. Schedule the inspection for tomorrow. Let's see what these Deathworlders think constitutes a proper starship." The human vessel was docked at Central Hub's auxiliary bay, a section typically reserved for freight and maintenance craft. Zalara was already formulating her critique as she approached. The ship was smaller than she expected, perhaps a third the size of a standard Confederation cruiser. Its hull was a matte charcoal gray, with minimal markings, just U, NSSARMS, TRONG, stenciled near what appeared to be the command section. No decorative elements. No ceremonial flourishes. Pragmatic, almost crude by Confederation aesthetic standards. Uninspiring, she noted as Lieutenant Pax recorded her initial impressions. Though I suppose there's a certain brutal efficiency to the design. A hatch opened, and a human emerged. Shorter than Zalara by nearly half a meter, the pale-skinned female approached with a confident stride that the Admiral found vaguely irritating. "Admiral K. Vosh," the human said, extending a hand in what Zalara recognized as their species greeting ritual. "I'm Captain Diane Rodriguez of the United Nations Starship Armstrong. Welcome to our vessel. Zalara ignored the outstretched hand. Let's proceed with the inspection, Captain. I have 13 other evaluations scheduled today. If the human was offended, she didn't show it. Of course, Admiral. Where would you like to begin? Engineering. Always engineering. As they entered the ship, Zalara braced herself for disappointment. The access corridor was narrower than Confederation standards, though she noted the bulkhead materials appeared unusually robust. The lighting was subdued efficient rather than comfortable. Your species prefers dim illumination? She asked. Rodriguez shook her head. Not particularly. We found that maintaining lower light levels during normal operations improves crew alertness during emergency conditions when systems might be compromised. Zalara made a note. An actual practical consideration rather than a cultural preference. Unexpected. The engineering section was compact but immaculately organized. Chief Engineer Naveen Chowdhury, a dark-skinned human with an artificial left arm, greeted them with a nod. Our propulsion system is a modified Alcubierre drive, he explained. We've incorporated several innovations to reduce exotic matter requirements and improve bubble stability. Zalara examined the warp core with growing interest. The humans had implemented several solutions she'd seen in other species' ships, but they'd combined them in ways she hadn't encountered before. More fascinating was their backup systems, not merely redundant, but entirely different approaches to the same problems. You maintain 3 separate FTL methodologies? She asked, unable to conceal her surprise. Yes, Admiral, Rodriguez confirmed. Primary Alcubierre drive, secondary quantum slipstream, and emergency jump drive for short distances. We call it the belt, suspenders, and duct tape approach. I don't understand that reference. It means we don't like being stranded, Chowdhury explained with a smile. The life support systems were equally unconventional. Rather than the standard atmospheric processors used throughout the Confederation, the humans had developed a bioengineered system. Living filters? Zalara asked, examining the green glowing tanks. Genetically modified algae and bacteria, Rodriguez confirmed. They process carbon dioxide more efficiently than mechanical scrubbers, produce oxygen, and can even neutralize some environmental toxins. They're self-replicating and require minimal maintenance. Zalara made more notes. Innovative, though I question their durability in combat situations. That's why we have triple redundancy with standard mechanical systems as backup, Chowdhury said. The biofilters are just more efficient when operational. As the inspection continued, Zalara found herself asking more questions and making fewer critical notes. The weapon systems were particularly impressive, not for their power, which was actually modest by Confederation standards, but for their versatility and targeting precision. Your point defense network is remarkably dense, she observed. Rodriguez nodded. We prioritize survival over overwhelming firepower. Our tactical philosophy emphasizes endurance. A defensive posture? Unusual for a predator species. We learned long ago that you can't project power if you're dead, Admiral. The crew quarters were Spartan but functional. The bridge was smaller than Confederation designs, but ergonomically superior for rapid information processing. Most surprising was the ship's medical bay, which rivaled facilities she'd seen on vessels 5 times larger. You devote considerable resources to medical care, she noted. Humans break easily, Rodriguez said with a shrug, but we're very good at putting ourselves back together. By the time they reached the final section, a surprisingly elaborate hydroponics bay growing actual Earth flora for supplemental nutrition, Zalara had filled her datapad with observations. Your vessel is unexpected, Captain Rodriguez, she admitted as they returned to the airlock. Unconventional in almost every respect, yet undeniably effective. Thank you, Admiral. We've learned to work with our limitations. Rating 94, Zalara announced. Rodriguez and Chaudhry exchanged stunned glances. That's impossible, Lieutenant Pax whispered. No vessel has ever. The Armstrong lacks the raw power and technological sophistication of our advanced member species, Zalara continued, ignoring her aide. However, its integrated systems, redundancy philosophy, and adaptation of existing technologies demonstrate an engineering approach that prioritizes crew survival and mission completion above all else. It is, in essence, the most practical vessel I have ever evaluated. She fixed her 6 eyes on Captain Rodriguez. Your species has much to learn, human, but you've clearly learned the most important lesson in spacecraft design: a ship exists to serve its crew, not to impress admirals. As Zalara departed, Lieutenant Pax hurried after her. Admiral, this rating will cause significant diplomatic repercussions. The Draxians will protest. The Arcturus Dominion will demand re-evaluation of their... Let them, Zalara interrupted. I've inspected 10,000 ships in my career, Lieutenant. This is the first one I would actually want to serve on. She paused, looking back at the unassuming grey hull of the Armstrong. Request a transfer of the human's design principles to my personal database. There's much the Confederation could learn from these newcomers. Behind her, Captain Rodriguez smiled.